Hey everybody, let's change gears today and do Eric Clapton's Layla from the old Unplugged album. Okay, it's kind of a mysterious song. I learned this back in college. If you're around my age, you certainly heard it on the radio all the time. And everybody knows the chorus and the intro, but when it gets to the verse, I could never remember the chords to the song. And I couldn't figure out why, because most songs I can figure out the chords, right? But this one defied me. So the other day I was like, well, I have most of a music degree now. Let's take another look and see if we can figure it out. Turns out to be super interesting, like the way that it works under the hood. Okay, so what I'm talking about is this. We do this, and then we go to this for the verse. What do you do when you get lonely? No one waiting by your side. You've been running and hiding much too long. You know it's just your foolish pride. And then Layla, you got me on my knees, Layla. So going into the verse and then going back to the chorus, like something kind of magical is happening there. So I'm going to try to take you on the journey of what it is, because I've remade this video many times, and each time I'm like, that's still not quite right. So it's a very cool journey. All right, so we begin the song in D minor. So when we go to the verse, in a parallel universe, all he does is go to F major, which is the relative major of D minor. Say you imagine you're in A minor, and then you want to play something in C major. It's all white notes. It's all just the white keys on the piano. It's the same notes of the scale. It's just where you start. And a lot of times when a song is in a major or minor, it'll sort of wander into its relative major or minor and wander back, and you don't really even notice it, right? It just kind of sounds like a coloration, but no notes have changed. It's all the same notes. Okay, so in a parallel universe, that's all he did in the song. And the song would go like this. Stay in D minor. What do you do if you get lonely? No one waiting by your side. F major. You've been running and hiding much too long. You know it's just your foolish pride. Layla, you got me on my knees, Layla. Okay. Now, if you've heard the song, that sounded wrong. But it didn't sound like wrong, right? Like it sounded fine. It just was missing some spice. So the way the spice works is that when Eric Clapton goes from the minor intro to what would have been the relative major verse, he drops the whole song a half step, down to E. So when you go to the major, the brighter verse part, the whole song is like, there's just like sunken energy. It's kind of down, kind of blues energy to it, right? And then when he goes from that part back to the minor chorus, which is like the darker part, he raises it again a half step to increase the energy and make it seem brighter. This is called brute force modulation. And it gets used in pop songs a lot because it's kind of a cheap move, but like toward the end of a pop song, you know, if you don't want to like add more drums or make it louder or more people singing or speed it up, if you just raise the whole song a half step, it's suddenly fresher and brighter to the ear, and you can leave everything else the same. Brute force modulation. What's interesting about this song is that he uses it in both directions, down and up. Okay, and he's using it for a very specific purpose, to sort of darken the major part and brighten the minor part. Where it gets really interesting is how he does that, because he disguises those transitions. There's no point at which in the song you're like, oh, he just changed keys by half step. And that's where it gets really interesting. So let's take a look at those two sections here. Okay, this first section is pretty gnarly, so get ready to hang with me on some of these music theory concepts. The first thing I need to explain to you is how this section works. So what we're in D minor. We're going to go to B flat major, C major to D minor. That's a major 6 to a major 7 to a minor 1. Okay, that sounds pretty cool. It gets used a lot in minor keys. Major 6, major 7 to the minor 1. You might ask yourself, why does that sound so minor when 2/3 of the chords are major, right? B flat, major 6, major 7 to the minor 1. Well, one way to get your head around that is to look at it from the perspective of the relative major. Okay, so D minor is the minor, the relative major is F major. Let me show you what I mean. If I gave you B flat major, C major to F major, you'd be like, oh, right on, that's fine. That's just 4, 5, 1 in F major. Okay. Now if we're in F major, and instead of that I give you 4, 5 to D minor, that's 4, 5, 6. That's a deceptive cadence. That's where instead of going 4, 5, 1, you go 4, 5, and you go off to the minor 6 instead. Okay, that's a deceptive cadence. It gets used in music a lot. So part of the reason we like this major 6, major 7 to a minor 1 and a minor key is it's just the same thing. It's a deceptive cadence if we were in the relative major, but since we're in the relative minor, we call it 6, 7, 1 instead. But it's the same motion. But that's why we like that sound so much. Now keep this in mind because it gets important later. Okay, so the next big mystery is how do we get from here to there? What is going on with that chord? Now, it's a C sharp minor, okay. But it doesn't quite sound wrong, does it? Like something's going on, but it doesn't sound like a completely random chord. Like your ear kind of accepts it. So this is magical to me. C sharp minor. Let me play you an A major now. Like they overlap, right? They almost sound the same. The reason is that A major has A, C sharp, and E. C sharp minor has C sharp, E, and G sharp. So 2 of the notes overlap. So 2 of the 3 notes in these triads are the same. So your ear is like, it kind of sounds like the dominant. It kind of sounds like an A major, which is the dominant of D minor, but something is funny. But you accept it, but you're also on the adventure for something new that's happening. So in a minor key, your 5 chord often is major. So 5, 1 is a very common harmonic resolution, 5 to 1, okay? And the reason in minor keys we like it to be a major 5 chord, in this example, like A, C sharp to E, that C sharp is a half step below D. Remember, we're in D minor. So that half step dissonance, it's harsher. We like that to resolve more, so the C sharp pulls to the D, okay? So a lot of times you'll do a major 5 even though it's a minor key. So for example, if we were doing this, so this, we're doing 6, 7, but 1. But what if we did 6 to 7 to 5 to 1? You'd be like, oh yeah, that sounds totally fine, right? This. But instead of that chord, I'm going to give you this chord. And you're like, huh, I want to accept it, something funny is going on. And that's how he changes key. Because by going to this chord, he's just wildly changed keys. D minor only has 1 black note in it, the B flat. C sharp minor, a half step lower, has C sharp, D sharp, F sharp, G sharp, and B natural. That's 5 accidentals changing. So it's a completely different key. But this is how he sneaks it in without you noticing it. Okay, so we go to the C sharp minor. Now he's here. He wants to kind of like anchor you. So we're going to go to the 5 of C sharp minor, G sharp major, to here. Now, I told you that the verse is in major, but it's a half step below where it would have been F major. So it's an E major. So we need to get from here to the relative minor of this, which is E major. So how are we going to get there? Well, the standard way to get there is to go through the 5 chord. So we could do something like, when are you gonna get lonely? No one waiting by your side. 5 to 1, B7 to E major, okay? And that would have been fine, right? But he wanted it to sound cooler, and he also wanted to call back the way he was doing the intro and the chorus, which is this. Okay, so what he does is instead of going 5, 1 in E major, he borrows the C major and D major chords as though he were in E minor, okay? Just like we did B flat major, C major to D minor, okay? He used, in E minor, it would be C major, that would be major 6, major 7 to minor 1, C major, D major to E minor. Okay, he borrows those, but instead of going to E minor, he goes to E major. Let me show you what happens. So it's this. What do you do when you get lonely? No one waiting by your side. That little move right there. Okay, it would have been major 6, major 7 to E minor, but because, which is what he did in the intro, but instead you get E major, so it sounds even brighter. So he wants your arrival in E major to like really land and be kind of special. So when you get there, you're like, oh, it's surprisingly bright, surprisingly major, even though you just dropped the whole song a half step. Right, so it's this mixing of musical influences to get you kind of uncomfortable and like, is this positive, is this brighter, or is this worse? Which is how the whole song feels, right? So that's how we get to E major. Okay, I know that's a journey. If you obviously rewatch that, hopefully if you rewatch it again, it gets nice and clear because it's so elegant the way he does that. So, okay, we're going to leave that part there, and then we're going to talk about how he gets back into the chorus. Okay, so now we've made it to E major. We're solidly in E major, like it feels a little woozy, but we know we're there. Okay. Now what we're going to do is a 2-5-1-4 progression, a sort of disarming bluesy progression. We're going to do F sharp minor 2 to 5 to 1 to 4. F sharp minor to B major to E major to A major. A major is the 4 chord now, right? And the 5 chord is B major, right? 1 4 5 E A B. Okay. So this 2, you've been running, 5, 1, hide much too long. You know it's just your foolish pride, Layla. Oh, and then that feels so good. So what happens right there? Okay, so he set up this engine of going down by fifths, from 2 down to 5th to 5, down to 5th to 1, down to 5th to 4. What he does then is go down another 5th to the D. Okay, but there is no D natural in E major. It should be D sharp. So right off the bat, it comes off as a surprise. But also, D minor has D and F natural too, and F definitely is supposed to be sharp. Like that's the leading tone of E major. And so when that goes flat too, not only is it a surprise that we got to the D, it's even more of a surprise that it's minor. So the minorness of it hits you extra hard, and you're like, oh wow, it's so minor. It's so much more minor than I ever could have imagined, right? And so that's how he gets you back to D minor. Like it's wildly outside the key, but he sets you up to get you there in this way that's like so exciting and satisfying. By the way, when you get there, what's happened is the whole song has now lifted a half step again. That's the crazy part. He just gave you a brute force modulation of like what in a normal pop song, you'd hear the whole thing rise, but you didn't hear it coming. It comes as a surprise because of the way he sort of winds it up in the circle of fifths progression. So it's magic. Like it's a really elegantly constructed song. And so anyway, I hope that like understanding how that works now, when you listen to it, you can be like, oh wow, that is what's going on. That's why it sounds so mysterious. So, okay, I hope that was at least a little bit clear and helpful. Thank you very much for watching.